Hey guys, today we're driving the 2023 Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid. We spent some time in the last generation plug-in hybrid last year. The more time I drove it, the more time I spent with it, the more I enjoyed it. And I think that's kind of the takeaway that I have here this week with this new Outlander. It's based on the Nissan Rogue, so we've got a lot of Nissan bits in the interior, exterior, but the powertrain is all Mitsubishi. It's basically the same powertrain that was in the previous generation, but we have a larger capacity battery, 20 kilowatt hours now, and more powerful electric motors. 85 kilowatts in the front, 100 kilowatts in the rear, making a combined power output of 248 horsepower. So this can get up to 60 miles per hour in under 7 seconds now, which is great. We've got 38 miles of electric driving range and about 420 miles on a full tank and a full battery combined. So good amount of range in this. Let's walk you around this today. We'll show you what it looks like inside and out. We'll talk about what it's been like to live with, and we'll take it for a drive. You can see this interior, it's pretty much all Nissan except for a Mitsubishi logo. We've got a couple PHEV specific buttons in here, but still a pretty nice place. Nice materials, trimming, fitment. This is a top trim SEL, which means it costs about 50 grand, though the plug-in hybrid Outlander starts around $41,000. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here, so we'll just kind of get started with the basics. We've got a fully digital gauge cluster with a lot of information. It's kind of information overload, if I'm being honest. You can see all sorts of stuff from your MPG to different trip meters, power flow, safety, cruise control stuff, your music, etc., etc. I've mostly just been leaving it on this calm screen because it gets a little bit busy visually. Otherwise, this interior is pretty straightforward. Physical buttons and controls for climate control. This SEL comes with heated seats and a heated steering wheel. And down here, there's a massage function for the seats, which is kind of cool. I assume these are Nissan's zero gravity seats, which are always fantastic. Otherwise, we've got a pretty basic interior. Everything looks and feels about right. The only interesting thing is this Mitsubishi logo, which is on a piece of plastic that doesn't really match anything else in here. You can tell that's just kind of Mitsubishi parts bin, which is actually just fine because it feels pretty nice in here. Wireless CarPlay, Android Auto, wireless charging down here, a Bose sound system, panoramic sunroof, and then yeah, we gotta go check out the back seats. There is actually, hiding back here, a very tiny third row. We'll show you guys that in a minute. But the second row, for now, is pretty spacious. This is a slightly larger vehicle than something like the RAV4 or the Ford Escape plug-in hybrid, and it feels it. The inside is pretty roomy. Rear window shades, rear heated seats. You've got some climate controls back here, which is nice. You can fold down the second row of seats in 40-20-40 configuration, and you can kind of individually move them forward or back. The center will fold down as an armrest, and then there's a peek at that third row back there. Let's go in the trunk and check that out. All right, so the third row actually folds down very conveniently into kind of the back of this area, though you lose a lot of storage space for your charge cable, etc. But for the most part, that's just going to be in your garage or at home. We'll just put that down there for now. Here's how you lift everything up. So first, here's step one. You lift these seats up. They lock into place. Step two is you pull on this. These flip up. Raise your headrests. And that's your third row. And you get virtually no legroom, unless if you want to move the second row seats forward. But then they don't get as much legroom. So it's a pretty heavy compromise here with third row space. I'm gonna kind of chalk this up to a minimally useful, almost useless, unless if you have very small children. So yes, it technically has 3 rows of seating. Are they usable? No, not completely. So there's some compromises to be had there. Fortunately, we can gain back some of our storage space if we just fold these headrests down and fold this forward, then you have kind of a lower floor here to put things, and this can just hang out. So it's up to you how you want to kind of configure this. There's lots of options on ways to kind of get the most cargo space for whatever you're needing. I like that you can fold this third row flat, but you do lose some under space too. Nice thing, you can fold down the second row and make sure that's all flat, and you get a ton of room in the back of this Outlander. So that's cool. I like that there are levers behind that third row, and you can just do it all from the trunk area. These do lock into place, which is a bit annoying if you're going to be putting these up and down a lot. Let's say you've got bikes coming back here. But that's said and done, a pretty usable SUV and quite spacious inside for the size and class of this thing. All right, press it, it pops open. You've got two connectors here. One, your just traditional EV charging connector, and then you've got a CHAdeMO here for fast charging. This can charge from 0 to 80% in about 38 minutes, only 50 kilowatts, and there aren't a lot of CHAdeMOs around anymore, but it's there if you need it, and I think that's only available on the top trims. The rest of the time, this will charge in about 6.5 hours on 240 volt and about 11 or 12 hours on 120. Let's take a look under the hood. All right, so there's your 2.4 liter Atkinson cycle inline 4-cylinder from Mitsubishi. You shouldn't need to dip into the gasoline power very often in this PHEV. I noticed in the cold, about 35 degrees, and on mostly highway driving, I got about 28 miles of electric driving only range in this week. That's when I maxed it out. So I think 20 is kind of a nice minimum. The conditions weren't ideal. The rest of the time, you should be seeing a lot more electric driving range out of this plug-in hybrid. I think it looks kind of good too. Very reminiscent of the previous model with all the chrome bits, but also unique and a little bit larger in every dimension. Nice looking crossover, no complaints there. Interesting, when you press the brake pedal to start the car, it goes all the way to the floor, kind of like the Nissan Leaf. Okay. You've got a little bit of an electric whirring sound at lower speeds. You can hear that as soon as you put it into reverse. Pretty wide angle fisheye reverse camera and a nice looking 360 cam. Not the biggest infotainment screen, but it's functional. Love all these physical buttons for climate. I'm not sure for the US market, but I know in Canada that this does have a heat pump, so it can operate the heat when the engine's not on. When you first start this up, cold start it in the morning, it will kick the engine on for a few minutes just to warm everything up in normal mode. And then if you go into EV, it'll pretty much just strictly be an electric vehicle until your battery runs out. And that puts us into all these drive modes that we have. So guys, there are just a ton of different options in this Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. So we have this EV switch right here. You can choose between normal, electric vehicle, save, and charge. And those pretty much do what they say they'll do. Normal figures out the best way for the engine and the electric motors to make the car most efficient. EV is strictly EV mode, unless if you push down through the kickdown switch on the accelerator. Save will save the battery for later use, and then charge will use the gasoline engine to charge the battery system, which is kind of cool. We'll just leave it normal. And then you have this switch over here, which is kind of one pedal drive, but you'll have to press the brake pedal below speeds of 6 to 8 miles per hour. But it gives you pretty strong regen. So you can almost one pedal drive this in traffic until you get to a stop. You get paddle shifters behind the wheel, which you can choose between a number of different regen modes. We'll experiment with that once we get on the road. And then you have all these drive modes here. So you get eco, power, normal, tarmac, gravel, snow, and mud. And then there's also a hill descent control mode. Mostly just been leaving this in normal mode, but supposedly this has a pretty trick all-wheel drive system that can really do a nice job of torque distribution. It's got rear torque vectoring now, which is pretty cool in this new generation. So not necessarily rock crawler, think more SUV rally car, which I really like, and something that I actually really enjoyed in the previous generation Outlander plug-in hybrid. So without any further ado, let's take this on the road and see how it drives and give you guys some impressions from behind the wheel. So we're in normal EV mode right now. We're in normal drive mode, and we're just going to start with that. We're also going to turn off our Mitsubishi innovative pedal, which is the one-pedal drive system. That isn't quite a one-pedal drive system. Acceleration in full electric is actually pretty potent. The steering ratio is pretty fast, increased quite a bit over the previous generation. There's a little bit of body roll, but once it all kind of settles in, it's got a good amount of grip, and the front end is surprisingly sharp. All right, full beans, 2.4 liters kicking in there. Get any more power in power mode? Let's see. That wasn't that impressive, to be honest. We do. Feels a little bit faster. That's better. A little bit slow to respond on power in normal mode, but again, a drive mode change fixes that. At speed, about an average amount of wind noise and road noise for the class. I will say, however, much like the Nissan Rogue that we drove a few months ago, there is quite a bit of impact noise with these 20-inch wheels over bumps, and that can get a little bit irritating if you live in a rough area like we do here in Southeast Michigan. I'd probably want to swing for the smaller 18-inch wheels if that were the case. All right, let's switch into EV priority mode here. And our battery is still kind of warming up, so we don't have full regen yet. And sometimes it takes a few minutes for that gasoline engine to turn off and allow you to be in full EV mode. Something you have to get used to with these plug-in hybrids. But pretty good acceleration here. Very usable amount of power as a fully electric vehicle. Let's turn on this innovative one-pedal drive here. The interesting thing about it is that it actually moves the brake pedal, which I don't really care for that much. I'm not a huge fan of this one-pedal drive system. I would like it to completely bring you down to a full stop. It doesn't. And the fact that it kind of moves the brake pedal a little bit is a bit disconcerting sometimes. But it does have a lot of regenerative power. So we're not even at full regen yet, and it's slowing us down quite a bit. So when you push down through that kick down switch, engine will come on pretty quickly. That's nice. Let's go back into normal mode. And we'll switch this into Tarmac, which is kind of a sporty driving mode. Immediately noticing more power. Normal and Eco feel like they throttle you a bit on complete maximum power output, which is a bit unfortunate. Something you have to get used to. In Tarmac mode, regenerative braking will automatically be set to B5, which is the highest level. You can always choose that with the paddle shifters too. But actually, pretty sharp handling from this Outlander. Here, there, the engine's on. There's some weird powertrain disconnects with what's going on and what the engine is doing just because of the nature of it. It's always kind of acting as a generator to power the battery, directly or indirectly, as a series hybrid or parallel hybrid, depending on what you're doing. Sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off. But it's so quiet that in most scenarios, day to day, you don't really notice it doing anything weird. There are a lot of strange electric noises going on, especially at cold starts. You notice that a bit more than you would in other plug-in hybrids. But overall, I think it kind of adds to the charm of this Mitsubishi in some ways. Let's go into power mode here. Now, the handling here is quite sharp. Ultimately, I think the powertrain feels a little bit lackluster when you compare it to something like the RAV4 Prime, for example. It just doesn't have the power or responsiveness. But when just driven around casually, this is a great plug-in hybrid to drive. It's smooth, it's very efficient, it's got a usable amount of range. I mean, we've been kind of hustling this around a bunch and we're only down to 23 miles already. In the real world, this works very well as a nice plug-in hybrid option. And it's still expensive, but all plug-in hybrids in this class kind of are about the same. Maybe you could save a little bit money, go for the Ford Escape plug-in hybrid. RAV4 Primes are still commanding a pretty big premium. You might be able to get one of these for a better deal. Overall, I'd say the driving experience here is just very normal, very predictable. Nothing too exciting until you really start to push this car. Supposedly, it's quite good on gravel, and the super handling all-wheel control does a nice job with torque distribution, power distribution. Haven't really tested it this week on loose surface, but I imagine in the snow and the winter this would be an absolute monster, and you could probably have some fun with it too. The rest of the time, this is just a comfortable car to live with day to day. It's a bit appliance-like in its character and manners, but I've enjoyed driving it this week. It's pretty simple and straightforward to get into. The only thing that's been a little bit overwhelming is just the number of choices between screens in the center display, drive modes. But you get into this car, you leave everything in normal, the way it defaults to when you start it up, and it's perfectly fine. All right, now we have full regen. So let's see what full regen looks like off throttle here. Switches back into normal. We'll engage our pedal. Not pressing the brake, just coming down from speed here. And off throttle, it does a pretty good job slowing you down, just putting power back into that battery. And then once you get to about 8-9 miles per hour, it'll level off and you'll just coast. I do wish, because the pedal's always moving, that this was just a true one-pedal drive system. I know Mitsubishi and Nissan aren't ready to commit to one-pedal driving because they're trying to get consumers used to this kind of in-between, but I think personally, to drive, this is more difficult and challenging to get used to than a true one-pedal drive system, just because of the inconsistency with it. But otherwise, using this like a normal two-pedal car gas brake, it's okay. The brake pedal has a somewhat normal feel for a hybrid. It's a little bit on the squishy side, but unless if you're getting deep into the brakes or driving this hard, you don't really notice anything weird about it. Alright guys, so summing up the Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid. I think compared to the previous generation, this is better in just about every way. The interior space is nicer, it feels more modern. I like that this just shares a lot with the Nissan Rogue, which is in its own right a very nice crossover. The powertrain here is quite good for what it is. It's a little bit weird in some respects. It kind of makes some funky noises here and there in its operation, but it's okay to live with. And as an efficiency proposition, it's very efficient. It does a good job being a plug-in hybrid. You get a good amount of range, charge times are reasonable. Pricing is expensive, but you're going to be paying a little bit extra this day and age for something like this. It's in line with a lot of its competition, maybe a little bit more expensive than some of the options, but I think overall, definitely worth considering if you're looking for a plug-in hybrid crossover. I like the extra size from this Outlander compared to some of the competition. I like the extra battery capacity. I like the additional power. Of course, nothing really class leading here, but as an option, if you're kind of looking to get into this plug-in hybrid space, a very respectable one. So, all right, that'll be it for this one. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.